Well, let's have a look more at the stats from Cole Palmer in terms of hat-tricks for Chelsea. Most Premier League hat-tricks by any Chelsea player. He becomes the first player to score 3 Premier League first-half hat-tricks.
Cole Palmer is becoming exactly what the Premier League was afraid of.
What an angle he's found there.
Palmer!
Oh, yes.
Hat-trick!
Not a moment of brilliance, not a purple patch, but a system built on ice-cold decision-making, perfect execution under pressure, and the kind of intelligence that makes defenders second-guess themselves before the ball even arrives. And here's what makes it terrifying. He's doing it while broken. This season, Cole Palmer hasn't been allowed to run free. A lingering groin issue has turned his campaign into a stop-start balancing act. In the squad, out of the squad, back again. Just 910 minutes across 14 appearances. Fewer touches in the box. A drop in dribble success. Rhythm constantly interrupted by careful fitness management. And yet, 7 goals. 4 penalties taken, 4 converted. 3 free kicks, 3 goals. An XG of 5.99, meaning he's still outperforming expectation without ever reaching full flow. That isn't form, that's function. Because while the focus stayed on his fitness, Palmer quietly rewrote history. Against Wolves, he scored his 4th Premier League hat-trick for Chelsea, more than Didier Drogba, Frank Lampard, or Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank ever managed in the competition. He became the first player in Premier League history to score 3 first-half hat-tricks. Not just 3 hat-tricks, 3 before half-time. Everton, Brighton, Wolves, games dismantled before opponents could even settle. And the scariest part, it all happened in 25 minutes. But this story isn't just about Palmer. It's about what's forming around him. Chelsea under Liam Rosenior are 4 league games into a new era. 4 wins, 0 defeats. Perfect. Not through chaos, but clarity. A structure designed to get Palmer the ball in the exact spaces where his decision-making becomes lethal, where penalties are inevitable, where transitions end quickly, where final decisions are ruthless. So here's the question every Premier League defender should already be asking. If this is Cole Palmer while being protected, what happens when he's finally unleashed at 100%? Because this isn't a hot streak. It isn't hype. This is how nightmares are built, and it's only just beginning. Before the records and the headlines, it's important to reset the picture of who Cole Palmer really is, because the way he plays explains why all of this keeps happening. Cole Palmer is not a flair-first winger. He doesn't survive on tricks, explosive pace, or constant isolation duels. His game is built on judgment. He reads pictures faster than most defenders can react to them. He positions himself where decisions matter, not where highlights are made. That's why his rise at Chelsea hasn't felt chaotic or streaky. It's felt methodical. From the moment he arrived in September 2023 for a fee rising above £40 million, Palmer didn't play like a young attacker learning his way. He played like someone who already understood responsibility. In the 2023/24 Premier League season, he delivered 22 goals and 11 assists in 33 starts, finishing with 33 goal involvements, the most of any player in the league that season. But the surface numbers only tell half the story. His expected goals of 18.18 confirms that this output wasn't luck-driven. He wasn't overperforming wildly off low-quality chances. He was consistently arriving in high-value scoring zones. His expected assists of 8.73 shows the same pattern creatively. Palmer wasn't forcing passes, he was creating chances that should be finished. This is decision-making at scale across an entire season. That same season, Palmer recorded 140 touches in the opposition box, a number that puts him closer to elite forwards than wide midfielders. Yet he still completed 1,307 passes at an 83% completion rate, while attempting progressive long balls at a 66% success rate. This balance, control without conservatism, is what defines him. Nowhere is his mentality clearer than from the penalty spot. In his debut league season, Palmer scored 9 penalties from 9 attempts. These weren't low-pressure moments. Several came late in games, during comebacks or in matches where Chelsea's momentum depended on one action. His approach never changes. No drama, no hesitation, minimal run-up, pick a corner, execute. That emotional flatline is exactly what makes him lethal, and defenders sense it. Palmer doesn't rush defenders. He invites them forward. He slows the tempo just enough to let them overcommit, then slides into the gap they've created. This is why his dribble numbers are efficient rather than flashy. 98 dribbles at a 53% success rate in 2023/24. Not because he avoids risk, but because he chooses when risk is worth it. He isn't trying to beat 3 men, he's trying to beat one decision. In 2024/25, his second league season, the perception shifted slightly. The raw output dipped to 15 goals and 8 assists, but the underlying profile stayed elite. His expected goals rose to 17.28, his expected assists to 9.14, and his touches in the opposition box increased to 156. In other words, Palmer was getting into better positions more often. The finishing simply didn't convert at the same rate. That's not regression in influence, that's variance in outcomes. What's more revealing is his expanded responsibility. Palmer attempted 77 crosses, took 75 corners, and completed 1,310 passes at the same 83% accuracy. He became less of a final touch player and more of a structural one, the connective tissue between Chelsea's build-up and their finishing. His defensive work quietly increased too, 34 tackles, 147 duels won, and continued positional discipline without reckless fouling. Here's the uncomfortable truth in the middle of all this celebration. Yes, Cole Palmer just dropped a first-half hat-trick and rewrote a chunk of Premier League history, but the bigger story is what he's been fighting through to even get back on the pitch. Because the season hasn't been clean for him. It hasn't been rhythmic. It hasn't been that steady week-to-week run where a star player stacks form, builds confidence, and peaks. It's been stop, start, manage, protect, and then somehow produce anyway. Chelsea's own messaging around Palmer for months has been about management, not momentum. Reports around the squad have repeatedly framed his situation as fitness being assessed game by game, and minutes being handled carefully because of an injury-disrupted campaign. And when a player is being handled that way, it changes everything about the way you watch them. Because you're not just asking, how good is he? You're asking, how good is he when he's not allowed to fully run? That's why this hat-trick at Molineux isn't simply a great day. It's a warning. Injuries don't just take away matches, they take away rhythm. You lose training consistency, you lose match sharpness, you lose timing with teammates, and most importantly, you lose that inner certainty that your body will respond the way your mind wants. So when you hear phrases like manage minutes or game by game, what it usually means in real terms is this: in squad, out of squad, back again, available, then protected, starting, then reduced, pushed, then pulled back. And the result is a version of a player who rarely gets to build a sustained run, but is still expected to decide matches. With a lingering groin issue, Palmer's minutes this season dropped to 910, spread across just 14 appearances. Yet even in that reduced window, he scored 7 goals with an expected goals total of 5.99, again outperforming expectation without volume shooting. He took 4 penalties and scored all 4. He added 3 free kick goals from 3 attempts. When he was on the pitch, Chelsea still leaned on him for decisive moments. His touches in the opposition box fell to 45, his dribble success dipped to 39%, and his creative numbers declined. Not because the instincts disappeared, but because rhythm did. And yet, even without flow, the end product remained. That's the key distinction. Palmer doesn't need momentum to hurt teams, he needs one mistake. This is why defenders fear him. Not because he overwhelms them physically, not because he embarrasses them technically, but because he waits. He waits for a poorly timed step, a late recovery run, a panicked challenge. And when that moment arrives, Palmer is already balanced, already composed, already choosing the outcome. Cole Palmer is not chaos. He is control under pressure. That's the tension point in Palmer's season. And it's why the performance against Wolves lands differently. Chelsea won 3-1 at Wolves. On paper, it sounds straightforward: 2 penalties, 1 open play goal, job done. But the match report tells you how quickly Palmer took the game away and how clinical the sequence was. He scores in the 13th minute, first penalty, then the 35th minute, second penalty, then the 38th minute, open play finish. 3 goals in 25 minutes, completed before half-time, before Wolves could even settle back into the game. And this is where the easy penalties argument collapses, because penalties are only easy if you ignore the chain of events that creates them and the mentality that finishes them. Both spot kicks were won by João Pedro, who drew fouls from Matt Doherty and Yerson Mosquera. That matters because it shows Chelsea weren't being gifted goals randomly. They were putting Wolves into repeated decision-making stress, forced defending in the box, late challenges, panicked contact, and then Palmer steps forward to deliver the punishment. Then comes the third goal, the one that separates us. Match reports describe the third as a finish after a cutback, and within that moment you see why he's a nightmare. He doesn't run around hunting shots, he waits in the spot where the final decision becomes unavoidable. So while the stadium is still arguing about the second penalty, Palmer has already killed the game. This wasn't just a hat-trick, it was a hat-trick that snapped two separate historical lines at the same time. First most Premier League hat-tricks in Chelsea history. Palmer's treble against Wolves is reported as his fourth Premier League hat-trick for Chelsea, pushing him clear of club icons like Didier Drogba, Frank Lampard and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, who each had 3 in the competition for the club. And notice what's important about that comparison. It's not nostalgia, it's context. Those names are not random legends. They're the attacking backbone of different Chelsea eras. Drogba's power, Lampard's timing, Hasselbank's finishing. Palmer is now statistically above them in this specific category. Second, first player ever with 3 Premier League first-half hat-tricks. Match coverage confirms Palmer is the first player in Premier League history to score 3 first-half hat-tricks, referencing that he previously did it against Everton and Brighton, and now again against Wolves. That is not a normal in-form stat. A first-half hat-trick isn't just scoring 3 goals, it's scoring 3 goals before the opposition can even adjust, before the game can breathe. Doing it once is a great day. Doing it 3 times is a pattern that forces a new label. This isn't potential anymore, it's production. This is where the story turns from admiration into something closer to fear. Because Palmer's hat-tricks aren't all the same type. They aren't all home games against open teams. They aren't all one style of finishing. They show up in different contexts, and that is the definition of repeatability. What connects them isn't just goals, it's the timing of control. Palmer keeps doing the same thing. He makes games tilt early. He creates a scoreline that forces opponents into panic football. He turns tactics into survival. And that's why the injury context matters so much. Because players who rely on explosive athleticism usually need perfect physical condition to dominate. They need their legs, their spring, their burst. Palmer's weapon is different. His weapon is decision-making. So even when his rhythm is disrupted, even when his season is managed game by game, even when he's not stacking 90-minute performances every week, he can still walk into a match and manufacture inevitability in 25 minutes. And that leads to the question that should sit at the back of every defender's mind now. If this is Cole Palmer while being managed, what happens when he finally gets sustained run at 100%? Because if the version we're watching is still the protected version, then the Premier League might not be dealing with his ceiling yet. This is where the story becomes genuinely dangerous, because the Palmer explosion isn't happening in isolation. It's happening inside a system that's starting to make sense. Fast. Chelsea's league form under Liam Rosenior has been perfect so far. 4 games, 4 wins. And that matters because it tells you this isn't new manager bounce powered by chaos. It's structure arriving, and a star player becoming the centerpiece of that structure. Everything about Rosenior's coaching background points to a manager who's comfortable changing the shape without changing the principles. He's been described as willing to switch between back 3 and back 4 in defensive structure, while building attacks through short, deliberate possession and a modern positional approach. Tactical profiling around his work consistently points to a 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1 base in some contexts, but also a very plausible 4-2-3-1 in others, especially when you want a clear number 10 and 2 wide outlets. 1. Detailed tactical breakdown even describes how his build-up can morph into aggressive attacking shapes like 4-2-5 and 3-2-5, with the goalkeeper used high as an extra passing option to free others forward. That's not pretty football for its own sake. It's a method of getting numbers into the final third while keeping circulation clean. So when people say Rosenior's Chelsea look different, this is what they mean. Chelsea are not just playing faster, they're playing clearer. And in systems like that, one player becomes priceless, the guy who makes the final decision. That's Palmer. Tactical previews have essentially spelled it out. Palmer should start as the number 10 with wide runners around him, specifically naming Pedro Neto on the left and Estevao Willian on the right, and a striker ahead, with a double pivot behind featuring Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo. That's not a random 11, that's an ecosystem. Because in a 4-2-3-1, or anything that functions like it, the number 10 is the release valve. When the press comes, he's the outlet between lines. When the ball goes wide, he's the arriving option for the cutback. When the striker runs, he's the one choosing which run gets fed. When the box gets crowded, he's the one who can win a penalty without even touching the ball, simply by forcing panic decisions around him. And that is exactly how the Wolves game played out. Chelsea didn't need Palmer to dribble through the team. They needed him to end sequences. Wolves committed 2 fouls in the box, and Palmer did what elite finishers do. He made the punishment automatic. That's why penalties are not a cheap part of his threat. They are a tactical consequence, a functional outcome of pressure, positioning, and repeatable patterns. Look at the timeline: 13th minute penalty, 35th minute penalty, 38th minute open play finish. 3 goals in 25 minutes, completed before half-time. Wolves were repeatedly forced into box defending under stress, and João Pedro drew the fouls that created the spot kicks. That's systemic. That's not luck. And Rosenier's biggest early Chelsea trait, based on match reporting, is that the team's best phases come when they sustain pressure long enough for the opponent to break discipline. Once you have that, Palmer is the worst player in the league to concede a decision against, because his execution is so consistent, it feels mechanical. After the game, Rosenior called Palmer unstoppable and framed him as a world-class difference maker. That's not post-match hype. It's a manager publicly identifying his axis. Here's the part that separates a great scorer from a true attacking centerpiece. When Palmer is on the pitch, Chelsea's other attackers don't have to guess. They get reference points. Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo operate with cleaner structure and cleaner decisions. A double pivot lives and dies by options ahead. When your number 10 reliably finds pockets, receives under pressure, and keeps the ball alive, the pivot can play forward with confidence. That's the hidden value of a decision-maker number 10. He upgrades the team's passing risk profile without needing Hollywood passes every time. Neto and Estevao get wider lanes and better 1-versus-1s. If you have a number 10 who attracts central attention, the wide men get more of what they want: space to isolate fullbacks. Rosenier's anticipated setup explicitly leans into that, with Neto and Estevao as the width and speed around Palmer's central gravity. The striker, whether it's Delap or anyone else, gets a clearer job. Strikers love certainty. If I run, will the ball come? Palmer gives you that, not because he forces passes, but because he waits until the pass is right. In transitional moments, that's lethal. Rosenier's teams are described as comfortable building, with short passing but also exploiting space quickly. That blend is exactly where a Palmer to run a connection becomes a repeatable weapon. João Pedro becomes the chaos creator with a finisher behind him. When Palmer is behind you, those moments become goals, not nearly moments. Even the fullbacks, Reece James, Cucurella, benefit from purposeful final third actions. Systems that generate cutbacks and half-space combinations make fullbacks more dangerous without asking them to spam crosses. And in this Wolves match, the open play goal is literally described as a cutback finish. A classic, structure creates the chance, star finishes it moment. So yes, Palmer's quality is individual, but the damage he causes is collective, because once Chelsea have a stable attacking shape, Palmer becomes the player who decides which of those moving parts gets rewarded. Rosenier's early Chelsea isn't built around chaos or constant improvisation. The theme is controlled possession, flexible structure, and high-value chances. And that's why Palmer fits like a glove. He is the final decision. He takes the penalties, he chooses the tempo in transitions, and he delivers the last action when the opponent finally breaks. Chelsea being perfect in the league under Rosenior gives the story its spine, but Palmer gives it its identity. Because once a team finds a system, the league can prepare. But once a team finds a system and a player who turns pressure into inevitability, that's when defenders stop asking, how do we stop Chelsea, and start asking, how do we survive Palmer? And here's the line that should hang over everything. If Rosenior is building a clearer, more stable Chelsea, and Palmer is already producing like this inside the early version of it, what does this become when the system fully settles and Palmer is fully fit?